Well, hello and welcome to this session. Here we will learn how to work with loop constructs such as while and do while, understand when to use them. We will try to understand them using very simple examples. So a lot of things to cover, hence without further delay, let's quickly jump right in. So in this session, we will try to understand how do we use while loops. So first of all, why do we need to loop? So there are basically, let's say, scenarios where we have to execute the same block of statements or the same set of statements multiple times. In that case, we need to use a looping structure. So first of all, as you can see, I have created a new project here. And within this project, in the source directory, I'll go ahead and create a test class. So I'll name the class, let's say, while demo. I add a main method, and now we will see the use case where we have a group of statements which needs to be repeated multiple times. So I'll start with a simple example. Let's say I have an integer number 1 with the initial value of, let's say, 50. So if I print it out, so let's say I'm printing this number 1, and if I execute this, so we are getting the value of number is 50. Now let's say there is a use case where I need to increment this number. So I go ahead and increment this number by, say, 2. And then after incrementing, I'm again printing it out. So again, if I go ahead and run this, I see the value of 52 getting printed. Now let's say I have yet another increment statement that I want to be executed. So now the value of the number would be 54. Now let's run it again. Yes. So basically here you see a pattern emerging, that is we are having the same statement that we are initializing some value, incrementing the value, and then printing it out. This print statement has occurred more than 3 times now, right? So these are the use cases when you are basically doing the same thing over and over again. You can start using one of the looping constructs which Java provides. So we will see how we can write it using the first looping construct, which is a while loop. So basically, how does a while loop look like? So I'll just add a comment here. So first of all, we have to mention the keyword while, and then we have to put a condition inside this round braces. So this condition is basically a standard Java expression which should evaluate to a Boolean value of true or false. So after this round bracket starts the code block that we want to be executed multiple times. So I'll add a curly brace here, then statements that needs execution, and then I will close this code block. So basically this is how we write a while condition. One thing to keep in mind is the condition that you are writing here, right, that needs to be updated within the code body. Otherwise, this while loop will be infinite. It will keep on executing this block of statements indefinitely. So that's why we should add a update condition logic as well. So this is how your code structure will look like. Now we will try to write the above code using the looping construct. So first of all, I'll just type while output to differentiate this output from the above, and define one more number as 50. And while this number 2 is less than, let's say, 55, I'll keep on printing the value of the number. And now we will add the update condition, which will update number 2, so that in some point in future, the condition which we have specified here will fail and this loop will stop executing this block of statement. So the update condition will be a simple update which will just increment number 2 by 2. So now if we execute this, we should be able to achieve the same output which we have seen above. So this is the output which comes from the above block of statement, which is this one. And this is the output which came from the while loop. So that's basically how we work with while loops. Now we will see one more variation of while loop. It is called a do while loop. So what we are going to achieve here is, we will see how we can implement this above while loop structure using do while loop. So how does do while loop like? It looks like basically you have to first use the keyword do, then start the block of statements by adding the curly bracket. Then you add statements, and then you add some update condition for loop control. Then you close the block of statements by closing the curly brace. And now this is the major difference. Now here, after we have closed the block of statements, we write the condition that will decide whether or not to execute this code block. So here we will open the round bracket, and here we will put the condition expression. And then we have to end the body using a semicolon. So this is pretty important. So after you end the do while loop, you have to add a semicolon, which is not needed in a while loop. So basically, the do block will not check any condition before executing the statements at least once. So as you can see, initially these two statements will anyway get executed. After the initial execution, if the condition evaluates to a boolean true, then this condition will again get re-executed. So we will quickly see using an example. So we'll differentiate do while output. Let's say now I reinitialize number 2, which we already created above, to let's say 50. And then I write the keyword do, I open the block of statements, and then I write the print statement, value of number equals to number 2. Then I will write the update condition, which will just increment number 2 by 2. And then after this, we need to check whether the condition is true or false. That is, number 2 is less than 55 or not. And then we will close this all. So here we see an error. Let's see. So basically this error is because we forgot to write the keyword while, because this is a do while construct. And if you don't give the semicolon, it will also show an error. So this is a requirement. Now if we execute this code block, we should be getting the same output as the while loop. Exactly the while loop output and the do while output matches. Now you might ask one question, that while and do while exactly looks like same, achieves the same, and behaves the same. Both has one condition check, one update condition, and a block of statements. So in order to make this difference a bit more meaningful, we will try to see where we can use do while and not a while loop. So let's say you are writing one console program which will ask the user to input something from the console. So in that case, let's say you are prompting the user for some value to be entered, and until which you will keep on prompting the user to enter the correct value in case the user doesn't enter the proper value. So in those cases, you have to show the prompt first, and then the user has to input the value. So this makes a perfect use case where do while makes much more sense, because in do while, the initial block of statement first runs once, and then the condition check happens, which is exactly the case when we are taking a console input from the user. We'll see that quickly in example. So I'll just add a print statement here. Do while example using console input. I will use something called scanner. So scanner is basically a way to read from your system.in, that is your standard input, that is your keyboard. And whatever input is coming from the keyboard, it will try to tokenize it in form of various data types like float, int, something of that sort. So in this case, the idea is we have to input a particular integer from the console. We'll see how we can do that. So first of all, we have to define the scanner variable. I'm creating a new scanner object, and I'm pointing the scanner to take input from the system input, which is your keyboard. So system.in is basically all the inputs, all the keystrokes coming in from your standard input device, your keyboard in this case. Now, whatever the user is inputting, I plan on storing that input in a user input. So I'll define one integer user input, then I'll do the do while. Open the block of statement, and I'll write the prompt which the user will see for the first time. So please select your preferred coverage. In the next line, I'll write, if you enter 1, that's a tea. If you enter a 2, that's coffee. And then finally, I will prompt the user to enter the value. Please enter your choice. And specifically add 1/2, a colon, and then I will use the scanner to get the actual input. So I'll use the scanner object that we created above, and it has one method next int that we can use to accept the integer from the keyboard. So now let's say the user has provided us the input, which is integer. It might not be 1 or 2, which we are expecting above, but nevertheless, it's an integer. We now have to check whether the user entered 1 or 2. If not, we have to reprompt the user so that the user gets a chance to enter the value once again. If user input is not equal to 1 and user input, let's say, not equal to 2, then we haven't got any valid input. So we will prompt the user invalid choice. Please enter correct choice. Else, that means the user has provided us proper input, which is either a 1 or a 2. In that case, we will print, thank you. Enjoy your beverage. Now, at the end of the block of statements, we are going to check whether the user has provided us the correct input or not. If user input is not equal to 1 and user input not equal to 2, that means we have to reprompt the user to enter the value once again. So let us see this code in action. So basically it starts from here. Do while example using console input. Please select your preferred beverage, tea and coffee. Let's say I enter a 3. So if I enter a 3, it is printing invalid choice. Please enter correct choice. And again, it is prompting me with these two options. That means this block of statement is again getting executed if this particular condition evaluates to a true. Since I entered 3, this evaluated to true, and again we are getting the prompt. So now in this case, let's say I provide the correct value. Let's say I provide a 2 and press enter. It is saying thank you, enjoy your beverage. Well, if you ask this question that can while and do while loop be nested? Well, the answer is yes, they can, and we will quickly see how that is possible. So let's say I have a requirement where I need to print a box of stars. So what do I mean by that is the output should be like there should be 5 stars printed like this for 5 rows. And this is the last row. So how we are going to get this printed? So basically one iteration or one loop is required to print the number of rows, and one loop which will be nested within that parent loop to print out the stars in each of these rows. So we'll quickly see how to make that possible. So we'll declare an integer I as 1. Then I'll start writing the while loop, which should be less than 5. And why 5? Because we have 5 rows here. Now within this loop, I am going to write another variable, that is j, and we will print out the stars for each of those 5 rows. So for that, we will use a do while loop. So I'll print out the first star. Here we just need to use the print method, so the new line will not be added because I need to print the stars in a single row, and I'll add a space here, and then I will update the looping condition j equals to j plus 1, and then I add the while check at the end. J should be less than equal to 5 to rerun the code block. Now once a row of star gets printed, let's say I have printed a row containing 5 stars, then we move to the next line. So moving to the next line logic needs to come outside this do while loop. So we will do it outside the loop. So just a println would suffice. It will move to the next line. Now I will update the condition for this outer while loop. So I will update I equals to I plus 1. Also, let's comment this code out that we have written here. Otherwise, every execution we need to provide the user input. So now if we run this code, we see the block of stars getting printed. Now we will see how we can achieve this using a do while and a while. So the while loop will now be nested inside the do while loop. So just for differentiating, I'll add while do while star print, and let's start. So already I have declared I above, so I'll just reinitialize it to 1. Then I'll start the do. This is the outer do while loop. I'll declare j again. Then I'll start the while loop. J should be less than equal to 5 because we have to print 5 stars each row. Then I will print the star with a space and remove the new line character after 1 star gets printed. And then I'll update j Then I will move outside the while loop because my row of 1 star has got printed. Now I need to print a new line to move to the next row. For that I use a new line printing, and then I will update the outer condition variable, which is I, right? And then outside condition will be written here since it's a do while loop. So I should be less than equal to 5 and then the mandatory semicolon. Now if I run this now, we see again the box of stars getting printed. Now there is one more thing that you need to understand, is that the block of statements that starts at the curly brace and ends at the curly brace is not always necessary. So just to give you an example, I can write a do while without the opening and closing curly braces. I can just write one single statement within such a do while variation. So let's say I want to print a statement twice. So I will start doing it with the do while loop. So I again reinitialize I to 0 because it's already declared above. I write do, then my block of statement, which is just a single statement in this case. Then I will add the while condition and I add the prefix operator. I'll just explain what that operator does. And then I will end it. Now if I run this code, I will see this statement being printed twice. So now, what is this prefix operator? So this is the prefix increment operator. What it does basically is, while evaluating this expression, it sees what is the value of I. It will first increment the value of I by 1 and then use that value to evaluate this condition. So initially I is 0. So when this particular condition gets evaluated, it will be 1 less than 2, which is true, hence it will execute this statement. And in the next condition, when it starts running with 1, this will evaluate to 2. So 2 is not less than 2, it will fail and it will break. So this loop will run exactly once. But how did we get this statement twice? So the first statement execution which happened is without the condition check. So initially we know that do while runs the code block without any condition check. So first output came from there and the next output came from the loop execution based on the condition. Now we will try to write the same example using a while loop. I will again initialize I to 0. I will write while I plus plus less than 2. This is the postfix increment operator. Then I'll write the statement. This is also without braces. So we'll quickly run this code. Here also we see it got executed exactly twice. But in this case, we used the postfix increment operator. Postfix increment operator does what? It takes whatever value the variable has in the condition evaluation expression. Once the condition gets evaluated, it then increments or decrements the value of the variable. So initially I have set I to 0. So when it evaluates this check, it uses 0 less than 2. It doesn't do 1 less than 2. It sticks with 0 less than 2. So 0 less than 2 is true. So it executes this loop once. And after the condition check resulted in a true, it increments the value of I. That means after this statement is evaluated, it becomes a 1. So on the next loop iteration condition check, this value will be 1. So 1 is less than 2. So it again prints out this thing. And also it increments the value of 1 to 2. Now in the next condition check, since this is already a 2, 2 is less than 2, which is false, so it doesn't print out this statement. So that's why we get exactly 2 output printed here. I hope you now have a pretty good idea of how to use while and do while loops. Next, we will be tackling the for and the for each construct. Interesting things are coming up. See you there. Bye.